Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Play-by-Play with me, your host, Matt Severino. I'm very excited to have you guys back. We're going to do another episode of our Power Ranking series. Week 2 of NFL football just happened. It's currently Thursday, 3 o'clock. The game is going to be on in 5 hours. Very exciting game. Chiefs versus Chargers. And, we had a chaotic week this past week. There was a lot of surprises, a lot of disappointments. And, so we don't really have a whole lot to go off of. We only have 1 week of football, so, sometimes a team does amazing in week 1 and completely falls off. Sometimes they have a horrible week 1 and then end up being one of the best teams in the league. I mean, look at the Panthers last year started 3-1. Look how they turned out. And the Chiefs started 2-4. And look how they turned out. So, you never really know. This list is going to move around a whole lot, but I'd say for the knowledge that we have now, I'm very confident in this list. There's only really one team that I had no clue where to place them, and you guys will understand why once I get down to them, but yeah. Without any more hesitation, we're just going to jump right back in. And, number 1, I have the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills just played the Los Angeles Rams last Thursday. Can't believe it's already a week ago. They dominated that game. Josh Allen was all over the place. He was running the ball like Derrick Henry. His stat line was top notch. He did throw 2 interceptions. They had 4 turnovers, and I think it was the first half. It's something that they're going to have to clean up. But they did a good job of reeling that in the second half. They ended up wearing the Rams defense came out the gate and did a pretty good job of bothering this Bills offense, but since the Bills defense was so dominant in that game, there was really nothing the Rams defense could do, and eventually over time, without any help from their own offense, the Rams defense kind of just wore thin, and the Bills took over in the second half, and they dominated. Josh Allen, he threw 26 for 31, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns, a rushing touchdown, and because of those 2 interceptions, his passer rating was 112. There's not really a whole lot to say about this Bills team. They're dominant. They're dominant. They had 7 sacks on the day. And they just came out and made a statement in Game 1 against the last year's Super Bowl champions. So I'm going to have them sticking to number 1 for this week. Moving forward, I have the Los Angeles Chargers moving up from number 5 to number 2, taking the Rams' place. They just beat the Raiders this week, 24-19. Justin Herbert. Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. The dude he completed 26 out of 34 passes for 279 yards, 3 touchdowns, not a single interception. He didn't take a single sack, and his passer rating on the day was 129. The team did a good job of limiting their turnovers. Their offensive line obviously did a fantastic job of protecting Justin Herbert. And this team is just all around stacked from top to bottom. They're a fantastic roster. They're scary. And as the moment stands, as long as there's no injuries to this team, I would very, very much like to see the Chargers and the Bills play in the AFC Championship this year. I think that would be an extremely exciting game. I haven't checked their schedule yet, so I don't know if they're going to play it all during the regular season. I don't think so, but I could stand to be corrected, so I don't know. What else is there to say about this team? They completely revitalized their entire roster this offseason. they filled in so many holes from top to bottom, and they're stacked, and that's why I have them moving up from number 5 to number 2. So yeah, that's the LA Chargers. They're here to play. At number 3 this week, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, as of last week, I had the Kansas City Chiefs ranked as the worst team out of the AFC West, and now they're sitting as the second best team in that division and the third best team in the league. They wiped the floor with the Cardinals. I didn't expect the Cardinals to do much against them, but I mean, the way that they game planned for this game, they took away the Cardinals, the core of the Cardinals offense. The Cardinals like to run an air raid type of system, and they just they took the deep ball away. They forced Kyler Murray to take checkdowns all game. Put them in a situation where they have to run the ball, play the slow game, and that's not really how the Cardinals know how to play. They like to move the ball quick. They like a quick pace. That's where they're comfortable. And since the Chiefs were able to take that away from them, there was really nothing that the Cardinals could do to keep up. So the Chiefs ended up beating them 44-21. And I said it last week, the Chiefs love to surprise people. And that's what they did. They came out, they made a statement. They told the entire league, we really don't need Tyreek Hill. We're good enough without him. And it's true. It's still Pat Mahomes' team. Pat Mahomes is in the argument for the best quarterback in the league right now. A lot of people would say they are the best. Mahomes' stat line for this game was 30 for 39. He completed 30 for 39 passes. He threw for 360 yards. He hit on 5 touchdown passes, didn't throw a single interception, and didn't take a single sack, making his passer rating for the day 144. They did fantastic running the ball. They averaged 4.7 yards, over 27 carries for 128 yards on the day, and a touchdown. They did fumble the ball a lot, but they fumbled the ball 5 times and only lost it once. They recovered it 4 out of the 5 times that they dropped it on the ground. That's something that they're going to need to clean up. But yeah, their defense played very well. They they led their opponent in the yardage battle by over 200 yards. The Chiefs had 488 yards from scrimmage in this game, and the Cardinals had 282. The Chiefs are back. I honestly didn't expect them to be this good. They're going to have to prove themselves this week against the Chargers, which is going to be a big one. But, yeah. I have them moving up from number 9 to number 3. Now at number 4, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers dominated the Cowboys this week. They won the game 19-3. It wasn't the best game for the Buccaneers offense. Tom Brady has seen better days. He completed on 18 out of 27 passes for 212 yards. He threw 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he was sacked twice, adding up to an 87 passer rating. But truth be told, in their defense, they did play against one of the best defenses in the league. But where the Cowboys really struggled in that game was offense. They scored 3 points against the Buccaneers defense. And the Buccaneers defense is fantastic. But I think that game was a little more telling of the Cowboys offense than the Bucs defense. The Buccaneers had no problems running the ball that day. Leonard Fournette averaged 6 yards per run, over 21 carries, and that added up to 127 yards. The defense did a very good job of getting in the Cowboys' backfield. They had 4 sacks on the day and 7 tackle for losses. And yeah, it was a big ticket game that was national TV at 8 p.m. on Sunday, and they showed up. They proved that they were the team that everybody thought they would be. So yeah, I have them moving up from number 6 to number 4. Now, sitting down at number 5, I have the Los Angeles Rams. I mean, I kind of covered them a little bit when I talked about the Bills. Like I said, their defense played fantastic in the first half. They had 4 turnovers. They took 2 picks from Josh Allen, which isn't easy. But the offense couldn't answer back. They couldn't pick up their end of the slack. Stafford was completed on 29 out of 41 passes. He for 240 yards. He made 1 touchdown, but threw 3 interceptions on the day, and he took 7 sacks. So his passer rating was a 63. It's not really what one would consider a good game for him. Their O-line is going to have to step up big time moving forward, because there are some really good defensive lines in the league this year. Cooper Kupp was really their only bright spot on offense. He had a great game. And yeah, I think the Rams experienced a little bit of a Super Bowl hangover in this game, but you know, we all know what they're capable of. Their roster isn't any worse than last year, so you know, just because they had a bad game, I'm not going to drop them down too far, and I think number 5 is a good, comfortable spot. So yeah, they essentially switched places with the Chargers this week. So yeah, moving forward, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the Raiders fell to the Chargers 24-19. I mean, their defense did a good job of keeping this game within reach. They only lost by 5 points. Derek Carr did take 5. He did take 5 sacks on the day. He didn't really have a very good game. He completed 22 for 37 passes for 295 yards, threw 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions. And he's going to have to step it up going forward. He sent the ball over to his new favorite target, Davante Adams, 17 times, and he only connected on 10 of those passes, whereas the second most targeted receiver on the day was their tight end, Darren Waller, and he was only targeted 6 times. I think that's something that's going to have to change moving forward. I think they're going to have to, if they want to win games, he needs to share that ball around. I understand he was uncomfortable in the pocket, getting sacked 5 times on the day, but Darren Waller and Hunter Renfrow are very, very capable wide receivers, and they were not looked to enough in this game. I understand that Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in the league, but if you want to win games, you got to include more than just one guy in the offense. I mean, they do got to do better. Their defensive line has to do a better job getting in the backfield. They did get 5 tackles for losses, but they didn't have a single sack on the day. But at the end of the day, even though their offense struggled a little bit, they played against, a top 3 defense in the league. And they played well enough. This team played well enough against my number 2 team to keep them relatively in the same spot that they were. I have a few teams dropping out of the top 10, so it's actually going to move them up from number 7 to number 6. But yeah, if they want to win this division, right now I have them ranked 3rd in the division, so their offense is going to have to step it up. Carr is going to have to step it up. He's a fantastic quarterback. I know we've all seen what he's capable of. but they have some tough battles ahead of them. So yeah, I have them at number 6. Now, at number 7, I have the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings are my biggest riser this week. I have them jumping up from 21 to number 7. They just moved up 14 places. It was put up or shut up time for them this week. They were playing against a somewhat weakened Green Bay Packers roster, but it's still, they're still a fantastic defense, and they completely upset them 23-7. They won on both sides of the ball, offense and defense. I mean, they held Aaron Rodgers to 7 points. The Aaron Rodgers led team to 7 points, and they were able to put up 23 on a very good, very skilled defense. Kirk Cousins himself, he completed 23 out of 32 passes for 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, not a single interception on the day, which is big because last year interceptions were a little bit of an issue for him. He did take a sack, but overall his passer rating was 118. And I think we've all been saying it for a while. Kirk Cousins has always kind of been like very underrated quarterback, and I just hope that he proves us all right this year and brings these Vikings to the playoffs. I mean, how great would it be to see them win the NFC North this year? That would just be fantastic. Their offense did receive a huge boost from their running game. They rushed the ball 28 times for 126 yards, and they averaged 4.5 yards per carry. That's fantastic. Justin Jefferson had an insane game. He caught the ball 9 times for 184 yards. He averaged over 20 yards per catch, and he scored 2 touchdowns, with his longest catch of the day being 64 yards. They didn't have a single turnover on the day. Their defense did a pretty good job of getting in their opponent's backfield. They had 4 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. And yeah, I mean, it was just total dominance for them in this game, and they proved that they are here to compete. So yeah, I have them moving up from 27, jumping up 14 places, from 21 to number 7. Moving forward, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, the Cincinnati Bengals this week dropped from number 4 to number 8. They were upset in overtime by the Steelers. Joe Burrow did not have his best game. He completed 33 out of 53 passes, which is a lot of attempts, for 338 yards. He only averaged 6.4 yards. He did throw for 2 touchdowns, but the back end of that is he threw 4 interceptions, which is not good. That's something that they need to clean up, because they're in a stacked division, and if they want to find themselves having the same success that they had last year, that 4 interceptions is not good. This new look O-line did not look good. Joe Burrow got sacked 7 times in this game, and his overall passer rating was a 61. I mean, to be fair, this game came down to the wire, and they had the win stolen from them by Minkah Fitzpatrick. They scored a touchdown with 2 seconds left on the clock in the 4th quarter, and it was tied 20-20. All they had to do was kick the PAT, and that was game. And Minkah Fitzpatrick had, the play of the week, blocking that PAT, sending the game to overtime, and giving the Steelers a chance to win. And that's what they did. The Steelers kicked the field goal and beat the Cincinnati Bengals 23-20. I gotta say, their rushing attack wasn't perfect. I mean, Joe Burrow is their best rusher on the day. He kind of averaged. He helped balance it out a little bit, They attempted to rush the ball 34 times on the day, adding up to 133 yards and averaging 3.9. But that is with him rushing the ball, and he himself averaged something like, I think it was like 6 yards per carry. Let me double check that. 7.8. Joe Burrow averaged 7.8 yards per rush. Joe Mixon did not have a very good day. He carried the ball 27 times for only 82 yards, averaging 3 yards per rush. And his longest rush of the day was 31. So really, realistically, like, he actually had a worse day than it looks on paper. T. Higgins did not help out as much as he did last year in the playoffs. He only had 2 receptions on the day for 27 yards. He was very quiet. And yeah, I mean, this is a good team. They're really talented. They just made it to the Super Bowl last year. We know they can win games. We know they can surprise everybody. But the thing I was surprised most about was the fact that they just rebuilt their O-line, and Joe Burrow was sacked 7 times. He wasn't even. Their O-line was so much worse last year, and he did a better job of calling out blitzes, and it's something he's elite at. So seeing him take 7 sacks is scary, and part of that is attributed to how good that Steelers defensive line is. But I do have to say, T.J. Watt getting hurt is huge. That's a huge loss for the Steelers, and that's going to hurt them in my ranking this week, or else they probably would be higher than where I have them at. So yeah, I had the Bengals falling from number 4 to number 8. Now, this week I have the Baltimore Ravens jumping up 2 spots from number 11 to number 9. They beat the Jets 24-9. I mean, I don't really know of anybody that's really surprised about that. I honestly thought it could have been a cleaner win for this Ravens offense. Surprisingly, the worst aspect of their offense was their rushing attack. They, as a team, only averaged, including Lamar Jackson, 3 yards per carry over 21 carries for 63 yards. Lamar Jackson had to win the game through the air in this one, and he did. He completed 17 out of 30 passes for 213 yards. He threw for 3 touchdowns, only 1 interception, and he took 2 sacks on the day, adding up to a 98 passer rating. I mean, honestly, their defense could have done a better job. They did show very good. Their defense showed very good red zone presence. They allowed 378 yards of offense, and they still held the Jets to only 9 points. It wasn't a perfect game for this team, but we all know who's here, who's on this roster, and how good what they're all capable of. So yeah, I have them sitting at number 9. Now, moving on to number 10. This one is a sad one for me. I'm very excited for this team. I have the Denver Broncos falling down from number 3 to number 10. I mean, this was the biggest upset of the week. I had the Broncos at 3, and I had the Seahawks at 32. And they lost with Geno Smith under center for the Seahawks. I would never think in a lifetime. I'm just shocked. All I have to say is I'm shocked. The Seahawks, I guess they got it done in this game. I mean, Russell Wilson didn't have a horrible game, surprisingly. He was 29 for 42, over 300 yards, touchdown, not a single interception, and he only took 2 sacks on the day. So his passer rating was 101. I mean, the scoreboard didn't really tell the true story for this one. The Broncos were able to put up 433 yards, whereas the Seahawks were only able to put up 253. I mean, it was really a tale of two halves in this game. The Seahawks put up 17 in the first half, and the Denver defense shut them out. After that, they kind of started. They had their halftime conference, and they really started to put things together. But at the end of the day, they couldn't get it done. They couldn't put themselves in a winning position. The score was 16-17, and on the final drive, they, like I said, just couldn't get themselves in position. They had to kick a 64-yard field goal, and they missed it to end the game, and the Seahawks won. Jerry Jeudy was the only player for the Broncos that was able to find the end zone. He, on 4 receptions for the day, he had 102 yards. He averaged 25 yards per catch. And yeah, his longest of the day was 67 yards. And he was the only one to score a touchdown. Their rushing game wasn't even bad. They tried rushing the ball 20 times for 103 yards, and they averaged 5.2 per rush. I do have to say, I think if they're struggling like they were in this game, they should probably rely a little more heavily on their rushing attack. If you're averaging 5.2 yards per rush, there's no reason you should be putting the ball on the ground only 20 times. They could bump that number up a bit. But yeah, it was a massive upset. Now we know where the floor lies for this Broncos team. I don't really see them falling any further than this. I think they're going to have to reconvene. I think they took the Seahawks way too lightly, and they got, they were just shocked. They didn't respect the Seahawks, and the Seahawks took advantage of that, and they were able to put up, 17 in the first half. And it was just too much for this, uncoordinated Broncos team to really come back for. I mean, if there was another 5 minutes in this game, Broncos probably win, and they're probably still sitting in the top 5. But yeah, this loss was big enough for them to drop out of the top 3 down to number 10. Moving along here. This is one I'm very excited to talk about. I have the Dolphins moving up 2 slots from number 13 to number 11. I don't want to get too ahead of myself here. The Patriots did not look too good in this game. It was, I don't want to say total dominance, but this game was all the Dolphins. This game was all Dolphins. Tua completed 23 out of 33 of his passes for 270 yards. 1 touchdown, not a single interception. He did take 3 sacks on the day, and his passer rating was 104. He had very clean stats on the day, but I have to say he did look extremely uncomfortable in the pocket. He didn't receive any help from his rushing attack. They tried putting the ball on the ground 23 times, only accumulated to 65 yards, 2.8 yards per carry. But that's what Bill Belichick does. He takes away your favorite thing. He takes away your favorite toy, and that's what he did. He took away the rushing attack, and the Dolphins were able to get it done through the air. It might have not been the most efficient day. Tua did struggle getting the ball downfield. He had that one pass early in the game where he underthrew Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill was gone for a touchdown, and he underthrew Tyreek by like 15 yards. Tua received a huge boost from his defense in this game, and honestly, I think it really doesn't even matter how good or bad Tua is when you consider the fact that his two wide receivers are Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I think Jalen Waddle is, a very underrated receiver, probably in the top 10 in this league. And Tyreek Hill is, I think everybody can agree, is at least top 3 in this league. And I don't know. This game was pretty much all about the Miami Dolphins defense. This game would have been a one score game if it wasn't for a fumble return touchdown. The Patriots were on a big drive, and there was a play where the refs missed. I think it was Xavier Howard held up one of the Patriots receivers, and Javon Holland came over and picked it off to pull the Patriots out of the red zone. And if anything, this Dolphins defense answered every single question about it. I mean, for one, they did pretty well without Brian Flores. I do think that they could do a little bit of a better job stopping the run. Another big question for them was depth at cornerback, and this guy Kader Kohou, I don't want to pronounce his name wrong, but I don't really know how to say it. Kader Kohou he's an undrafted free agent rookie, and he filled in for Byron Jones in this game, and he ended up finishing the game with the highest PFF grade of any player on the Dolphins roster with a 91.9. There was still a point late in this game, in the fourth quarter, where the Patriots had a chance, and he just made the game-ending play. He had a huge hit, which, I think it was on a 3rd and long or something like that, and that was it for the Patriots. He was the hero for the Dolphins today, and that's not really an issue anymore. The cornerback position is not an issue. Once Byron Jones comes back, I think the trio of Xavier Howard, Byron Jones, and Kader Kohou is going to be scary, alongside this defensive line, who has so many rotation pieces, to rush the edge, and this defense is stacked, and they completely embarrassed Mac Jones. But on the other end of the field, the offense, Tua is going to need to step it up. Tua gets nervous the longer he has time in the pocket. If the play isn't set up, if his first read isn't wide open, he starts to get a little bit nervous. He gets happy feet, and he doesn't make the best decisions with the ball, after his first and second read aren't really there. And I think he just needs to learn to calm down a little bit and just, I don't know. I don't really know what to say about Tua. I mean, I like Tua a lot, but he just needs to. It's just a weird statistic. I don't know how Tua Tagovailoa has a higher passer rating, getting the ball out of his hands in under 2 seconds than in under 3. It's a very weird statistic. I don't know why he gets so nervous when he has time with the football. But I gotta say, that's not the worst problem to have as a quarterback. That's something you can absolutely fix. So, yeah, I have the Miami Dolphins moving up from number 13 to number 11. Now, the Packers, I don't want to overreact too heavily on the Packers' loss this week. They did get dominated in a divisional game against the Vikings. But it was their first game without Devontae Adams, and I just don't really think Aaron Rodgers knew what to do with the ball. And because their wide receiver room is not looking healthy right now. Aaron Rodgers was completed 22 out of 34 passes on the day for only 195 yards. He didn't throw a single touchdown, but he did throw a pick. He was sacked 4 times, and his passer rating was 67. That's not a good game. He received no help from his wide receiving group. Their top wide receiver was A.J. Dillon for the day, who was a running back. Their O-line needs to step it up. They allowed 4 sacks and 3 tackles for loss. I have to say, I think they're going to have to change up their scheme a little bit. Their rushing game deserves a lot much more weight from their, they deserve to pull a lot more weight. They only tried to run the ball 18 times, and they got 111 yards on the day for they averaged 6.2 yards per rush and only rushed the ball 18 times. That's a problem. That's not very efficient. I'm just checking to see how many times they got in the end zone rushing the ball. They scored only 1 touchdown rushing the ball, but again, they only tried it 18 times and they averaged 6.2 yards. I'm looking at their wide receiving group. Sammy Watkins was supposed to be he's supposed to step up a bit. He caught the ball 3 times. He had 3 receptions on the day for 18 yards. Randall Cobb only had 2 receptions for 14 yards. And honestly, I'm not going to lie, besides Robert Tonyan, I don't really know anybody else in this receiving group. I know they have some rookies, and those rookies are going to have to step it up. I honestly think they should think about, right now it's kind of a win now type of thing for this team. If I'm them, I'm not really too confident in Jordan Love going into the future anyway. Jordan Love actually played. He got a little time on the field. He completed 4 out of 5 passes for 65 yards. He averaged 13 yards per attempt, and his passer rating was 120, so he actually did way better than Aaron Rodgers. But I think if they want to win some games this year, they got to trade for a wide receiver or something. I don't know. They can't carry on like this. Wide receiver is one of the most important position groups in football, and you got to have somebody in the facility that can catch the ball, that can get open. Somebody. I don't care if it's a veteran who you're going to have on a 1-year contract. If you got to sign somebody out of retirement, it's a problem they need to fix ASAP, or else they're going to be in big trouble going forward. So yeah, I have them dropping down from number 10 to 12, but if things carry on like this, they're going to fall even further. At number 13, I have the New Orleans Saints. Now, it was starting to look a little scary for this New Orleans team. I was a little afraid in the first 3 quarters of this game that, I was going to be disappointed. I have very, very high hopes for the Saints team. I think they have a roster good enough to make it into the top 10, maybe the top 5 teams in the league, at least potential-wise, this season. They pulled off a huge comeback this week. They scored 10 points in the first 3 quarters of this game, whereas the Falcons scored 23. So that the Falcons were up 23 to 10 going into the fourth quarter, and the Saints pulled it off, man. They scored 17 in the fourth quarter, and it only allowed the Falcons to kick a field goal, edging them ahead of them to win the game, 27-26. Jameis Winston had a fantastic game. He completed 23 out of 34 attempts for 269 yards. He hit on 2 touchdowns, didn't throw a single interception on the day, and he was sacked 4 times to add up to a QB rating of 111. They had a fantastic game rushing the ball. They probably should, put a little more weight into that, considering, I guess Taysom Hill is a running back now. He got the ball 4 times, and every time he averaged 20 yards per carry for 80 yards. His longest on the day was 57-yard rush. Alvin Kamara got the ball 9 times for 39 yards, and he averaged 4.3 on the day. Overall, their rushing game, they rushed the ball 19 times as a team for 151 yards, and they averaged 7.9 rushes, 17.9 yards per rush, and a touchdown. There's not much to be said about that. Their new receiving trio looked fantastic. Specifically, Jarvis Landry had 7 receptions on 9 targets. He had 114 yards on the day. He averaged 16.3. Michael Thomas, on the other hand, didn't do so well in the yardage department. He caught 5 of 8 passes for 57 yards, averaging 11.4 yards per catch, but he scored 2 touchdowns. And, this is a good team. This is just a really good team. They were very close to being upset by the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Atlanta Falcons proved some things about themselves this week. They have a better roster than I originally, thought of them. Marcus Mariota didn't even have a horrible game in that. He didn't have a horrible day in that game. It was very interesting to see Jameis Winston go up against Marcus Mariota, the 2 number 1 quarterbacks, the 2 top quarterbacks from their draft class. Both of them have had extremely rocky careers. But I have to say, I think Jameis Winston, this is his year, man. I think he's going to show up and he's going to be the quarterback that we thought we were getting out of college. I think the time he spent underneath Drew Brees has helped him tremendously. And I really believe in them. I think they're going to be a steady riser all season long. So yeah, that's the New Orleans Saints at number 27. Alrighty, at number 14, I have the Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers this week upset the, my divisional favorite out of the AFC North, Bengals, in overtime, 23-20. Honestly, it was really looking like this game was going to go down in a tie, but the Steelers clutched it in the final moments of this game. I talked about it when I was talking about the Bengals. Minkah Fitzpatrick was the hero of this game. He won AFC Defensive Player of the Week. He was just unstoppable in this game. I actually want to pull up his stats. He had 14 tackles, total tackles. 10 of them were solo. The dude, he had I think he picked up a fumble and returned it for a touchdown. He in the final moments of the game, with 2 seconds left on the clock, the Bengals scored a touchdown. All they needed was a PAT to win, and the dude came over the top and blocked the PAT to send them to overtime, and it gave them the chance to win this game, and they did. I mean, it was a fantastic game for him. Honestly, an upset like this, I would probably honestly have them ranked higher if they did not lose TJ Watt to a pectoral tear, and they also lost Najee Harris. I don't know what Najee Harris's injury was, but I know he's out. I was a little confused at first when I saw that they were starting Mitch Trubisky over Kenny Pickett, because honestly, as it stands right now, I think Kenny Pickett is the better quarterback, but Mitch Trubisky did not disappoint in this game. He did do good enough to, not hurt the team. He completed 21 out of 38 passes. He threw for 194 yards. He scored a touchdown. He didn't throw a single interception. And he was sacked only once to add up to 78 passer rating. Their rushing attack was not perfect. They carried the ball only 22 times for 75 yards, and they only averaged 3.4 yards per carry, which is not terrible. I mean, I would say that's kind of like 3.4 yards per carry is kind of the floor of efficiency. That's kind of right at where you don't want to do any worse than that, but you're okay with 3.4. That's enough to win the game. They shared the ball around quite a bit. More than a few receivers caught the ball. Pat Freiermuth, I know I just mispronounced his name, but he caught the ball 5 times for 75 yards. Averaged 15 yards per reception. Deontay Johnson would have had the catch of the year if his toe didn't cross that out of bounds boundary. It was so close. It was literally just his toe. I highly recommend you look up that play because it was just an insane one-handed catch. He looked like Odell Beckham Jr. on that one play. I think George Pickens was a bit of a disappointment in this game. He only caught the ball once for 3 yards. I'd like to see them include him a lot more in this offense going forward. But this game, the real story of this game was the Steelers' defense. The Steelers' defense dominated. They picked off Joe Burrow 4 times. They picked up 5 turnovers over the whole game. I mean, their defense can go to toe with anybody right now, and it's winning them games. It won them the first game against the team I had ranked at number 4. Now I have them ranked at number 8 because of how bad that Bengals defense. Not Bengals. How bad the Steelers defense embarrassed them. With the loss of TJ Watt, I don't know if this defense is going to reach the same heights that it did last week. I don't know how long he's going to be out for, but at the end of the day, that is a massive loss for them. I also want to just shout out Alex Highsmith. Dude had 9 total tackles on the day, 6 solo tackles, and 3 sacks, and 2 tackles for loss. He was a monster in that game. 3 sacks in one game is a lot. The Steelers defense did have overall 7 sacks and 9 tackles for loss, and they got to the QB 11 times. Like, I no matter what, this defense is very, very deep, very deep. This defense is very deep, but This defense is very deep, and I honestly, I don't know how. No one really knows how well they're going to do without T.J. Watt, because T.J. Watt is kind of the MVP of this unit. Moving forward, we have the Cleveland Browns. Now, the Cleveland Browns made a huge jump for me this week. They jumped up from number 25, I think it was. Yeah, number 25 to number 15. These guys get the last word against Baker Mayfield. Slightly disappointing. I mean, everybody thought that Baker Mayfield was going to come in here and just shred this team to pieces. But he ended up having, a subpar day. I thought Jacoby Brissett was going to be terrible. He wasn't, quote-unquote, terrible. He wasn't perfect, but he did well enough to not hold the team down. All right, moving along here, we have the Cleveland Browns at number 15. I have them making a huge leap from last week, jumping up from number 25 to number 15. Jacoby Brissett was by no means terrible in this game. I would say he was subpar, but he didn't do bad enough to hurt his team, and he just allowed them to carry him through this game. The true story of this game was the Browns' rushing attack. They rushed the ball 39 times for 217 yards, averaging 5.6 yards per rush, and they scored a touchdown rushing the ball. I mean, I gotta say, hold on, I need to pull up the stat. So, the time of possession was really what won the Browns this game. They nearly doubled the Panthers' time of possession. They held on to the ball. Their time of possession was 38 minutes and 26 seconds, whereas the Panthers' time with the ball was 21 minutes and 34 seconds. The fact that the score even ended 26-24 says a lot about this Panthers team. They are a very good team, but they just could not get the Browns off the field. Very smart strategy by Cleveland Browns to just try to eat up as much of the clock as they can, keep Baker Mayfield off the field as much as they can, and it caused Baker Mayfield to struggle a bit. But that's huge. 38 minutes and 26 seconds versus 21 minutes and 34. That's huge. Overall on the day, Nick Chubb had 22 carries for 141 yards. He averaged 6.4 yards per carry, and his longest on the day was 25 yards. He did not score a touchdown, but Kareem Hunt, on the other hand, had 11 carries for 46 yards. He averaged 4.2 yards per carry, and he did get in the end zone. Jacoby Brissett as I was talking about. He completed less than half of his passes. He did complete over half. He completed 18 for 34 for 147 yards on the day. He wasn't really pushing the ball downfield. He was just taking checkdowns all day. But he did score a touchdown to add up to a 74 passer rating. Honestly, I mean, this was a really, really close game coming down to the wire. And the Cleveland Browns kicked, I think it was a 58-yard field goal with 8 seconds left on the clock, I want to say. I think it was 8 seconds, right? Yep, Cade York, their rookie kicker, who won Special Teams Player of the Week for the AFC, kicked a 58-yard field goal to clutch the game over the Carolina Panthers, 26-24. And that says a lot about the Carolina Panthers. The fact that they lost to a 58-yarder with 8 seconds left on the clock, and they only held the ball for 21 minutes, means that the Panthers are a good team this year, but the Browns are even better. When their quarterback comes back from, the trouble that he has, this team looks scary. Their defense is phenomenal. Their running game is dominant. And the Cleveland Browns, once they get their quarterback, they become a contender for that AFC title. They absolutely become a contender for that AFC title. But right now, as it stands, I have them sitting at number 15. And I do want to also add that their D-line did get after the quarterback in this game. They had 4 sacks and 5 tackles for loss. They picked up 2 turnovers throughout this game. They had an interception and a fumble recovery. And it was more than enough to win this game. It was close. It actually wasn't more than enough. It was just barely enough to win this game. So, moving on to number 16, we have the Cardinals. Now, I don't want to be too harsh on the Cardinals after getting blown out by the Chiefs. I gotta say, the Chiefs just did a fantastic job of taking away the core of their offense. The Cardinals run an air raid offense, and the Chiefs took away the deep pass. And they forced the Cardinals they forced Kyler Murray to take checkdowns all day. It opened up the rushing attack a little bit for them. They averaged 4.7 yards per carry on 22 attempts for 103 yards and a touchdown. Honestly, I just think that the Chiefs did a good job of, forcing the Cardinals outside of their main offense. And the Cardinals, I just don't think they're used to playing in a very slow-paced check down and running the ball type of game. And I think that's what really hurt them in this game. They didn't know how to play the slow pace. And if they succeeded at playing the slow pace and holding the ball and keeping the ball out of Patrick Mahomes' hands, they could have actually won this game. But it's just not a comfortable position for them, and they didn't know what they were doing. And, it ended up hurting them in the long run. And they just couldn't keep the pace of the Chiefs and the Chiefs' dynamite offense, led by Patrick Mahomes. There's not really a whole lot more to be said about them. There's nothing to say about the Cardinals' defense. 44 points is all you have to say about the Cardinals' defense. 44 points. Their defense is not the same defense they had last year. And they won't be. They're younger. They're going to take time to develop. But I mean, and Kyler Murray on the other hand too. Kyler Murray on the other hand complained he wanted a new contract. He got a new contract. He got paid big time, and he's got to do better than how he did. He went 22 for 34 for 193 yards. Scored 2 touchdowns. Didn't throw a pick. He got sacked twice. His passer rating was a 99. He didn't do horrible, but I don't know. I think this game mostly comes down to Cliff Kingsbury and his just inability to adapt to new circumstances, and that's what their Achilles heel was last year, and it was the same thing in this game, same story. And if it continues like this, Cliff Kingsbury is going to find himself out of a job this offseason. And I don't want that. I like Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach. I love his offensive scheme, but the dude needs to learn how to adapt. He needs to be able to figure out what's happening on the fly and change. Because, again, like I said, if they would have went with the rushing game, if they would have just tried to eat this clock down, if they played an extremely slow pace and kept the ball out of Pat Mahomes' hand, who likes to play at a fast pace, if they would have played the Chiefs' game, played into the Chiefs' hand, they very much could have won this game. Because the Chiefs set up... The Chiefs' defense is by far... They're far from perfect. And they had the opening for the rushing game, and it's just not something... It's just not how they play. So, yeah. I mean, that's really just the story with the Cardinals, is adaptability. Can they adapt moving forward? Can they learn to adapt? So, yeah, I have them sliding down 2 spots to number 16. And moving along here at number 17, I have the Indianapolis Colts. These guys disappointed me this week. It was a big disappointment. I mean, first I'm going to start off by talking about the best part about this game for the Colts, and that was Taylor. Taylor is not a one-year wonder. He carried the ball 31 times for 161 yards. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry, and he had a touchdown. You can't really ask for more from the guy. You know, he's the centerpiece of their offense, and it wasn't enough to overcome a Houston Texans team. They ended up tying the first game of the NFL season. We almost had 2 ties, but the Steelers ended up clutching it late. But Matt Ryan's got to step it up. He can't play like this every week if he wants to. If the Colts are going to be a top team. He was 32 for 50. He had 350 yards, so he moved the ball. But that was on 50 attempts. He threw a touchdown, 1 interception. He was only sacked twice. So he wasn't under an insane level of pressure. And his passer rating on the day was 83. Michael Pittman Jr. had a phenomenal game. He caught the ball 9 times on 13 receptions for 121 yards and a touchdown. He was just consistent through the whole game for them. I mean, there's a lot of hype behind this Colts defense, and they allowed the Texans to put up 20 points. They kept it in range, but I mean, there wasn't a lot of hype behind this Texans offense. I don't think anybody expected the Texans offense to put up 20 points against this Colts defense. The Colts almost pulled off a big comeback too. There was a certain point where they were down 17. The Colts got on the board first in the first quarter with 3 points, and they were shut out in the second quarter where the Texans got the upper hand. The Texans scored 10 points in the second quarter, so it was 10-3 going into the third. where the Colts were shut out again, and the Texans put up another 10 points. So the score was 20-3 going into the fourth, and then the Colts came back from behind. They put up 17 points. They held the Texans off the scoreboard and went into OT, where nothing happened, and they tied the game 20-20. I mean, you can't really give Jonathan Taylor the ball more. If anything, Matt Ryan just got to be more accurate, and their defense needs to play to their skill. The defense is fantastic, extremely talented, extremely skilled. We know what they're capable of, and they need to prove that on the field, which they didn't do this week. So I have them dropping down 5 spots from number 12 to number 17. And honestly, I mean, I think this is the floor for the Colts this season. I think the Colts should only go up from here. But, I mean, we kind of thought the same thing about the Colts last year. I have a lot of hope for this team. And I just hope it's not another repeat. On the other hand, we have the Carolina Panthers at number 18. I mean, I kind of gave you the story of the game with the Browns. Everyone expected Baker Mayfield to come out and, slaughter his former team. But that didn't happen because his former team has a top-tier defense. Baker Mayfield was 16 for 27 on the day for 235 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, and he was sacked 4 times for a passer rating of 84.7. So he was just about average, a little bit below average. Christian McCaffrey was, invisible running the ball this game. He was, he got the ball 10 times for 33 yards and an average of 3.3 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. It's not terrible, not a terrible game. But they're going to have to give him the ball more. I understand if they want to kind of... I know he's had some injury trouble, so they might want to just slowly bring him back into the offense instead of just giving him 30 carries straight off bat and 10 receptions, 10 targets in the passing game. They did target him 5 times in the passing game for 4 receptions and 24 yards. Robbie Anderson had a fantastic game. He was targeted 8 times, and he caught the ball 5 of them for 102 yards, averaging 20 yards per catch, and a touchdown on the day. Like I said before, the fact that the Panthers only had the ball in their hands for 21 minutes out of this whole game, and the Browns had it for 38, and the Panthers were leading up until, the last 8 seconds of the game, where the Browns had to kick a 58-yard. They had to trust a rookie to kick a 58-yarder. I think that's phenomenal. I think this team is fantastic, and if that rookie, Cade York, misses that field goal, then the Panthers are the ones sitting at 15 and the Browns are the ones sitting at 18. Both teams proved that they were competitive, that they're here to play, but the Browns were the ones who pulled out the victory, and the Browns are the one with more potential, so they're sitting at number 15, and the Panthers are down at 18. But I do have them moving up. They were sitting at, number 23 last week, so they did jump up 5 slots to number 18. Moving along here to number 19, we have the New York Giants, and as you can see, I'm repping my Hakeem Nicks jersey. Fantastic wide receiver back a few years ago. I grew up in the New York, New Jersey area, so I grew up around Giants fans. I personally do not consider myself a Giants fan, but I'm rooting for this team because I have a lot of friends and family members who are Giants fans. I'm rooting for Daniel Jones as a person and an NFL player, and with Daniel Jones' limited touches in this game, he did very, very well. He only missed on 4 passes in this game. He was 17 for 21, over 188 yards. He did get the ball downfield. It was 9 yards per attempt. He threw for 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 5 times, and his passer rating on the day was a solid 115. He did a great job of including everyone in the passing game. He got the ball to 6 different guys out there. Saquon Barkley, on the other hand, how did Saquon do? Saquon Barkley, on 18 carries, on a limited 18 carries, rushed the ball for 164 yards, an average of 9.1 yards per carry, and a touchdown. And his longest on the day was that big 68-yard play. I don't think he scored on that play, but he brought them into scoring position. Saquon Barkley's back, and he's here to play, and he proved that in this game. Sterling Shepard had a huge play, 65-yard touchdown, which is what actually really kickstarted their comeback. They were down 13 points in the third quarter, and then the Giants scored 13 to tie the game up. The Titans scored another touchdown in the third quarter to go up, I think it was 20 to 13. And then in the fourth quarter, the Giants answered back and went for the 2-point conversion to edge them out over the Tennessee Titans 21-20. And not only that, they got the Titans off the field with a few minutes left, and they ran the clock out, and they won the game. Very proud of the Giants in this game because the Titans are not a walk. They are not a walk by any means. I mean, they held Derrick Henry to 82 yards, I think it was, on the game. I mean, it's just there's a lot to be excited about if you're a New York Giants fan right now. I mean, I wouldn't go claiming Super Bowl, but I think Daniel Jones has bought himself a little confidence. If really any aspect of this team needs to step up, I would say it's their offensive line and their defensive line. Their defensive line didn't do a good job of getting in the backfield. They only had 1 sack on the day, 3 tackles for loss, and they only got their hands on the QB 5 times. I mean, and same thing with their offensive line. They allowed 5 sacks. Not a number you want to see. You want to see that number, get thinned out a little bit. But with all that being said, I want to see how many carries did Derrick Henry have? Over 21 carries. They held him to 82 yards. I gotta say, Derrick Henry has been considered top 3 running back in the league for a few years now, and when you compare Saquon Barkley to Derrick Henry in this game, you know who the best running back was out on that field, and that's something I'm very proud of. Their O-line did a good job in the running department, but not in the protecting Daniel Jones department. And Daniel Jones, it didn't faze him. He only missed 4 passes. I mean, I know he only attempted to throw the ball 21 times, but I don't know. I'm excited for this team. I do think they could use a little more depth at the wide receiver position too. Kenny Galladay's getting up there in age, and it's starting to show, but Sterling Shepard is a very talented young guy. And I just have a lot of hope for them right now. I have them leading their division. I think it's going to be a close battle between them and the Philadelphia Eagles, but Eagles I have my own problems with, and I will get to that once I get to them. But for now, I have the Giants moving up 3 slots from number 22 to number 19. Brian Dable. Fantastic job, Brian Dable, with what he's done this offseason, with this group of guys that he has, with what he's done with Daniel Jones. He's making Daniel Jones look like an NFL quarterback. And I think no matter what happens this upcoming offseason, I think they have found their coach going into the future. Now sliding down to number 20, I have the Tennessee Titans, which we just talked about this game. There's really not a whole lot to say. Ryan Tannehill was 20 for 33 attempts. He threw for 266 yards. He didn't really push the ball downfield. He did get in the end zone twice. He did throw 2 touchdowns. He was sacked only once, and his QB rating was 106. Just an average Ryan Tannehill game. Accurate, conservative. He did have some pretty ballsy throws that were pretty accurate, pretty shocking. But overall, their team rushing, they rushed the ball 26 times for only 93 yards, but they averaged 3.6 yards per rush. In the receiving department, nothing special. Dontre Hillard only caught the ball 3 times, but he averaged 20 yards per reception. Not too bad game for him. Their defense did a good job getting in the Giants' backfield. 5 sacks is pretty good. But I gotta say, this is not the same Titans team that we saw last year. They got cheaper. They got younger. I still love Kevin Byard on their defense. They do have some names on this defense, but I don't know. They are not the same team they were last year, and I'm a little disappointed. They're not going to land number 1 in the AFC West, in the AFC, going into the playoffs this year. They are not going to be the top seed. That's one thing I could say pretty confidently. Hey, I could be surprised. I could be proved wrong at any point. But for now, I have them dropping down 3 slots from number 17 to number 20. And then moving along here, I have the Philadelphia Eagles sitting here at number 21. I gotta say, they really turned their offense around last season, mid-season, with Jalen Hurts, letting him loose, running the ball. In this game, he had, 90 yards rushing. They have probably the best running offense in the league. Overall, at least one of. When you talk about the talent in that room between Hurts, Sanders, and Kenneth Gainwell, they rushed the ball 39 times for 216 yards and an average of 5.5 yards per rush. Miles Sanders had 13 carries for 96 yards. He averaged 7.4 yards per carry. They had 4 rushing touchdowns on the game. Jalen Hurts didn't throw a single touchdown, but he didn't throw a single interception. He was 18 for 32 on the day passing for 243 yards. And his QB rating was an 80.6. He's not terrible with the ball in his hands, throwing the ball. But I gotta say, he is definitely not top-notch. Even though he did get sacked that one time, his offensive line is fantastic, to say the very least. It's fantastic. A.J. Brown had a huge debut with this team. On 13 targets, he caught the ball 10 times for 155 yards to average it out at 15.5 yards per reception. He looked pretty good against this Detroit Lions defense. The Eagles beat the Lions 38-35. This game was all offense, no defense. It was the same story rushing the ball on the Lions side. The Eagles rushing defense could do literally nothing Um, the Eagles' defense had a surprise performance out of this guy, Marcus Epps, that I had not heard of before this game. He had 10 total tackles on the day, 8 solo tackles. He had a huge tackle for loss, which meant a lot to them. But overall, their defense... Oh, and James Bradbury did have an interception, but overall their defense is not looking deep and sturdy. You know, no one really expected the Lions to put up 35 against them, and I'm not very confident about their defense going forward, but their offense is clearly one of the... At least their running offense is one of the most adept in the league right now. There's not a lot to be said about them. That's why I have them behind the Giants, is because the Giants at least have a defense. Although the Eagles' offense does surpass theirs. I don't really know what else to say about them. They did do a good job clutching the game. I mean, they have a great rushing offense. They were... Let's look at the score sheet really quick. So, this Eagles team scored... They were scoreless in the first quarter. They put up 24 in the second. Put up another 14 in the third. And then in the fourth, they didn't score at all. But on the other hand, it was enough to hold off the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions were on a comeback here. The Lions got up first. They scored 7 in the first quarter, and they scored another second in the second quarter to make it 24-14 going into the half. And then in the third quarter, it was 38-21. The Eagles finished the quarter up 38-21. And Detroit almost came back. They scored 2 touchdowns in that third quarter, but the Eagles ended up getting the ball with roughly 4 minutes left on the clock. And they ran the clock out, and they were able to hold this team off. The Eagles did have 455 yards of offense in this game. The two teams had a pretty even share of time of possession. 31 minutes and 34 seconds for the Eagles versus 28 and 26 seconds for the Lions. So yeah, because of how poorly their defense played, I do have them sitting behind the Giants as it stands. Whereas the Giants played a little more complimentary football. Sitting at number 22 is the Lions. We just talked about that game. It was almost a fantastic comeback by the Lions, but they could not get the Eagles off the field. In the final 4 minutes of the game, they allowed them to run the clock out, and the Eagles pulled it out. Let's see how Jared Goff did for today. For that, he completed 21 out of 37 attempts for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He did take 1 sack, but he was pressured 10 times. And his QB rating was an 80. The real savior for this Lions team in this game was DeAndre Swift. DeAndre Swift on 15 carries got 144 yards, and he averaged 9.6 yards per carry and a touchdown. Jamal Williams, on the other hand, had 11 carries. He only rushed for 28 yards, 2.5 yards per carry, but he got in the end zone twice. Moving on to receiving, DeAndre Swift did catch the ball 3 times for 31 yards, averaged out 10 yards per reception, and he was only targeted 3 times. But again, same story. Defense was disappointing. They played disappointing against a high-powered offense, but at least they were able to match. I didn't expect the Detroit Lions to come out and put up 35 points. And I heard a lot of talks about DeAndre Swift in fantasy. I didn't think he was going to average 9.6 yards per carry. I think DeAndre Swift is going to be taking on a bigger load of this offense going forward, and I think they're going to use Jamal Williams as more of like a power guy in those short distance. I don't think he's going to be getting 11. I don't really know, but he's going to be that third down type of guy, in 3rd and 1 type of guy. T.J. Hawkinson was a little bit of a disappointment. He was targeted 7 times. He caught 4 of the passes for 38 yards, averaged 9.5, no touchdowns. Amon-Ra St. Brown was targeted 12 times. He caught 8 of those balls for 64 yards, averaged out 8, and really his saving grace for this game was the touchdown reception. But yeah, these two teams had a very competitive game, so I do have them moving around a little bit. I have the Lions moving up. What was it? 3 spots? I think they were at 25. They moved up 2 positions from 24 to 22. But I do have to say that defense is going to have to play better if they want to even be talked about as a threat in their division. On the other hand, though, I just want to shout out their coach. What was his name? Dan Campbell. Their coach, Dan Campbell, because Dan Campbell has done a wonderful job with this team. He's built this roster from the ground up. He has done a wonderful job since he's been hired as head coach. And we all kind of know what he's capable of. And I have to say, I really hope that I think the Lions are going to win more games than they won last season. But I don't know if it's going to be enough to secure his job. And I really hope it is, because Dan Campbell can bring this team to greater heights than any of his predecessors has before him. So that's all I got to say about him and the Lions. They are sitting at number 22. Moving on to number 23 is the New England Patriots. Patriots lost to the Dolphins 20-7. They had a few shots in this game that realistically they were just dominated by the Dolphins defense. Mac Jones didn't have a horrible game, but he did underachieve a little bit. He was 21 for 30 for 213 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception early in the game on that drive. 87 passer rating. The real problem with their offense was their running game. The Dolphins did a good job taking away Bill Belichick's favorite toy, which is their running game. They rushed the ball 22 times for only 78 yards. 3.5 yards per carry isn't horrible. I would say that's just bordering on, inefficient. Jacoby Myers had an amazing catch on the sideline. But other than his one amazing catch, he wasn't really able to do much for his team. But he did lead his wide receiving group with 55 yards. Devontae Parker was nowhere to be seen in his revenge game against the Dolphins. He had only 1 catch on 2 targets for 9 yards. It was a disappointing game for the Patriots offense. Mac Jones was reported having back spasm, and he might not be playing for a little while, which is it hurts the Patriots quite a bit. At the end of the day, I really don't know how sold Bill Belichick is on literally anybody he has inside of his facility right now, including Mac Jones. No matter how well Mac Jones does this year, he might be picking a new quarterback in the draft and trading away Mac. I don't know what's going on with him and the Patriots, but he doesn't seem happy with anybody. But his defense wasn't terrible. Like I said, that if it wasn't for the fumble return touchdown, this would have been a 1-score game. And that's because of Bill Belichick's defensive scheme. He did a very good job getting into Tua Tagovailoa's head. He did a good job stopping, the main key of the Dolphins' offense, which is their rushing game. But because Mac Jones is reportedly not playing in this upcoming game, and because of how, just kind of bad they looked in their first game of the season against the Dolphins, I have them dropping down 5 slots from number 18 to number 23. Now this is a rough one. Cowboys are sitting at number 24. The Cowboys were just shut out by the Buccaneers. They lost that game 19-3. I get that the Bucs are a top-ranked team, but it's not just about positioning for why I have the Cowboys falling down. The game just went as bad as it could have went for the offense. The defense did a fantastic job. They held Tom Brady's offense under 20 points. They frustrated him. It was not a perfect game for Tom Brady. The Cowboys defense is going to be good this year as long as they do fine with injuries. But man, Dak Prescott was bad. Dak Prescott was the worst quarterback this week, and on top of that, he went down with an injury. He was 14 for 29, over 134 yards, no touchdowns, an interception. He was sacked only twice, and he had a 47 passer rating. And then on top of that, Zeke played fantastic, but they only let him get the ball 10 times. He on 10 carries, he had 52 yards, average 5.2 yards per carry. I don't know why they wouldn't give him a heavier load of the offense. The dude is 27 years old. He's in the prime of his career. This is going to be the best. It should be the best season of his career, but I think they need to show a little more confidence in him and get him the ball. He should be rushing the ball 20-25, especially with how bad Dak Prescott played, especially on top of the fact that they have a backup quarterback in now, somebody I've never heard of. The guy, his last name is Rush, something like that. I don't know. He needs to be averaging 20 carries, 25 carries a game right now. CeeDee Lamb was a massive disappointment for the wide receiving group. He was what? I just want to see. I'm going to check his stats for the game. Hold on 1 second. Please bear with me. CeeDee Lamb, he was targeted 11 times and only caught the ball twice for 29 yards, average 14.5 yards per reception. He was targeted 11 times and he caught the ball twice. Now, I don't know. I didn't watch the game, so I don't know if that's on Dak Prescott and the backup quarterback or CeeDee Lamb. But this is, Amari Cooper's gone. Cedric Wilson's gone. CeeDee Lamb needs to step up and command that wide receiving room because there's nobody else in there. I don't know who Noah Brown is, and he was their leading receiver for this game with 5 receptions on 9 targets, 68 yards. Not a single receiving touchdown. Honestly, this Cowboys team has a fantastic defense, and they can be a good team. But I think if they want to be good, they need to re-scheme their offense a little bit, and they need to go in the vein of something like the Philadelphia Eagles have. They need to find it doesn't matter if he can throw the ball. Just find a quarterback with legs under him, a quarterback that can run primarily. Trade for Taysom Hill for Christ's sake, and let him run the ball. Let him run the ball, run option plays with Ezekiel Elliott, and that's your offense. Ezekiel Elliott, Tony Pollard, and Taysom Hill running option plays the whole game. Maybe you throw some screens in there, and you'll have an offense. let Zeke be the prime guy, because he is one of the best running backs in the league, and it would be a shame to see him waste it. 27 years old, 10 carries a game. That would be a real shame. That's all I have to say about the Cowboys. They need to fix this fast because they are in trouble. And I think a running quarterback and an run option type of, trick plays, I think that's how they're going to win this year. If they're going to win it all. But Dak Prescott, I'm sorry, he's not the guy. I was never confident in the first place. He did good. I think it was his rookie year when he might have not been his rookie year. Whenever he took Tony Romo's job, he looked great. Ever since then, has only gotten worse every year he's been in the league. I'm not confident in them, and that's why I have the Cowboys sitting at number 24. They dropped down, what was it, eight slots? Yeah, they dropped down 8 positions to number 24. They were sitting at number 16 last week. They can fix this, but they need to give Zeke the keys to the offense. Now, so, little side note. I have no clue how to rank this next team. I don't think any ranking I can give them is truly fair. It's the San Francisco 49ers. They lost to the Bears this week. They started out, they put the first 10 points up on the board, and then the Bears came back and scored 19 unanswered, and that was the game. It was Trey Lance's first start. I don't know if it was his first start in the league, but it was his first. This is his year. He's been handed the keys of the offense. There's a lot to be nervous about. They lost a few big pieces in Raheem Mostert, and now Elijah Mitchell's hurt. They lost Alex Mack last offseason, Laken Tomlinson. There's a lot of pressure on him, and their front office didn't do a whole lot to support him in the offseason, and now Elijah Mitchell's hurt. They played in the game with really bad conditions. You've probably seen the clip of the slip and slide, the Chicago Bears celebrating with a slip and slide at the end of the game. But Trey Lance did not look good in his first game this season. He was 13 for 28 for 164 yards, no touchdowns, an interception, and a 50 passer rating. If the play continues like this, we're going to be seeing Jimmy G back out on the field a lot sooner than we wanted to. I really want to root for this guy, Trey Lance. But I just don't know what to do with this team because they have such a high potential, but they almost looked like a high school football team out there last week. So part of me wants to put them at 32 because they just lost to a team I had ranked at 31. I think I'm going to put the Bears at 32 this week. So, and they lost to the Bears. I want to put them at 32 because of how horribly they played, but they do have that really talented defense. There's a lot to be excited about. Out of everybody past number 15, the 49ers have the highest chance to make it back into the top 10. I had them at number 8 last week, and now have them dropping all the way down to number 25. But honestly, like I said, part of me wants to put them down to 32. The other part of me wants to put them in the middle of the pack. I don't know what to do with them. I want to excuse them for last week. So I almost want to put them as a DNF. I don't know what to do with them. I believe in them. They need to figure some stuff out on the offensive side of the ball because they don't really have a backup running back. Their backup running back right now is Trey Lance and Deebo Samuel. Their true backup running back, his name is Juan. Sorry if I mispronounce it. Juan Jennings. And let's see how he did. I'm sorry, not Juan Jennings. Jeff Wilson Jr. Jeff Wilson Jr. is their backup running back. On 9 rushing attempts, He ran for 22 yards, averaging 2.4 yards per carry. That is atrocious. That is not a starting running back in this league. So as it stands, Deebo Samuel, Trey Lance, and Brandon Ayuk are the only real running backs on this roster. That's a huge problem. I mean, I know they could probably find somebody, off of somebody's practice squad to come in next week, and they probably will. This team in the past has had a good eye for talent. I mean, I don't know. They're missing their offensive coordinator from last year, Mike McDaniel. Mike McDaniel is the one who put this offense together, and now they have a new quarterback taking over the helm. They're missing their top running back, and if I'm a 49ers fan, I'm a little worried. I have a lot of reason to worry if you're a 49ers fan. I mean, their defense wasn't terrible, but they only had 2 sacks against the Chicago Bears. They didn't spend a lot of time in the backfield. I understand there wasn't a lot of traction under their feet. What did Nick Bosa do? Nick Bosa had 5 total tackles, 4 solo tackles, 1 sack. He had 1 of the 2 sacks for his team. I mean, like, their defense needs to step it up. But again, that's why I don't want to judge this team too harshly, because everybody saw those conditions. Those conditions were horrible. There was a few inches of flooding on that field. So, the Bears were able to take advantage of that and pull out the win in a pretty big comeback. So, if you're a 49ers fan, I'm sorry that I have your team so low right now. But, my thought process was, I don't know what to do with them, so I'm going to put them behind. I'm going to put them ahead of kind of like all the teams that are rebuild teams, quote-unquote rebuild teams. But I'm going to put them behind everybody else, because I don't know if they deserve to be ahead of the Cowboys with the way that they just played. I don't know if they deserve to be ahead of the Patriots with the way they just played. I would say the 49ers offense played just as bad as the Cowboys offense last week. But the Cowboys defense played better. Even though they put up the same amount of points, the Cowboys played the Bucks versus the 49ers played the Bears. So that's where I'm going to stand on that. Hate me if you will. I don't think they're going to stay at number 25 for very long. If they keep playing like this, they're going to drop. I'm telling you now, they're going to drop. They're going to go lower for me. But, they, out of everybody past number 15 on this list, they have the highest potential to make it back in the top 10. Because Trey Lance has talent. I do believe in that kid. I really want to root for that kid. I really want to root for this team. Alrighty. This is where we kind of move on to the teams that are sort of in the rebuilding process, kind of. Some of them are at the back end of it, but playoff hopes aren't really that high for any of these teams. Any one of them can surprise. A few of them did last week. Actually, about half of these teams surprised last week. So if they continue to play like this, they'll be moving out of the, what is it? Bottom 7. So the bottom 7 teams are kind of the, bottom of the pack. But any one of them could be moving out as long as they keep surprising, they keep playing well, and they keep winning games. So starting off the bottom 7, at number 26, I have the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta Falcons almost upset the Saints this week. I was going to be really disappointed if they did, but they didn't. Marcus Mariota didn't have a horrible game. He actually did pretty good. It was, like I said before, it was pretty cool to see him play against Jameis Winston now that they're both starting quarterbacks in the NFL. Right now, they're kind of just starting him while I think it's Deshaun Kaiser is their backup. Whoever their rookie quarterback is gets some time with the team practicing. They're just doing the thing that every team does, where they get a rookie quarterback and they sit him for a year. Marcus Mariota was 20 for 33, 215 yards, and no touchdowns but no interceptions. He had a 79.7 passer rating. Cordell Patterson's back. Second year as a running back. He kind of fell off at the end of last year, but he carried the ball 22 times in this game for 120 yards, averaged 5.5 yards per carry. Marcus Mariota made work with his legs. He carried the ball 12 times for 72 yards. He averaged 6 yards per carry. Both of them scored a rushing touchdown. They did drop 2 fumbles. But, hey, this roster's coming together, and it wasn't a fluke that they almost upset the Saints. If they keep playing like this, they're going to be moving out of the bottom 7. I have a lot of hope for this team, and they look good. Kyle Pitts, didn't have a perfect game. He actually was kind of bad. He was targeted 7 times, only caught 2 of them for 19 yards total. But they're not here, but they're close. They're on the horizon, and I could see the horizon for the Falcons, and I expect them to win a few games this year. There's a reason why I have them at the higher end of this list right now, of the bottom 7. Moving on, I have at number 27, the Commanders. They beat the Jaguars 28-22. The end of that game was pretty exciting. The Jaguars put up 10 points in the fourth quarter. The Commanders put up 14. A little bit of back and forth action. Carson Wentz didn't play badly. Carson Wentz was 27 for 41, 313 yards, 4 touchdowns. Did throw 2 interceptions, which was his problem last year. Was turnovers. He was only sacked once, and his QB rating was 101.0. I'm excited for. I hope this is a redemption arc for Carson Wentz after all he's been through. I don't know if he won MVP that year, but he was in the conversation. He had a great season with the Eagles. Ever since then, it's just been nothing. They gave up on him for Hurts. Traded him to the Colts. After one horrible season with the Colts, he was traded to Washington, and he just led Washington to a victory in Week 1. They have a rookie wide receiver in Jahan Dotson, who scored 2 touchdowns in this game. He was targeted only 5 times, caught only 3 of them, and he scored on 2 of them. So that's looking pretty promising. Terry McLaurin was a little quiet. He was targeted 4 times, only caught 2 of them for 58 yards. But he did average, 29 yards per catch. Their wide receiving room, isn't horrible. Their running back room isn't horrible. They could play better. There was one play where Jahan Dotson was. They did some type of running play with him, and it was a 10-yard loss for them. I think it was a pitch. So that kind of hurt their overall rushing attack on the stat sheet. But Antonio Gibson, 14 carries, 58 yards, 4.1 average. This team isn't terrible. They're another team that could rise out of this as long as Carson Wentz cleans up those turnovers and he keeps throwing touchdowns. Because this game was so close, I put the Jaguars right behind them. Didn't really know exactly how to order this entire, this bottom 7 teams of the league, but I figured that neither one of them looked really any better than the Falcons. But it was a close game, so they deserved to be together. So I got the Jaguars at 28. The story of the Jaguars was they showed up to play. Lawrence put up some drives there. He put some passing drives together. It wasn't perfect game for him, but last year he was kind of rated as one of the worst quarterbacks in the entire league, and he was not the worst quarterback this week. He was 24 for 42, 275 yards, 1 touchdown, threw a pick, sacked twice, and he had a 75 rating. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, I think this team could do a lot of damage rushing the ball moving forward. James Robinson had 11 carries, 66 yards. He had averaged 6 yards per carry, and he scored a touchdown with his legs. Travis Etienne, on the other hand, only had 4 carries for 47 yards. He averaged 11.8 yards per carry. So because of that, I think Etienne is going to be taking up a nice share of the football this upcoming week. I'm not sure who they play this week, but let me check that out. They play the Colts this week, funny enough. So I think that's going to end up becoming it's going to be a big running game. I think Travis Etienne deserves a lot more weight in this offense. Christian Kirk, the guy they paid him a lot of money this offseason, targeted 12 times, caught only 6 of them, but he put up 117 yards, and he averaged 19.5 yards per reception. Defense didn't do fantastic. Neither defense in this game did fantastic. Trayvon Walker, I think that's their rookie, right? He had an interception in his first game with the team. Yeah. First overall draft pick. He's an end, and he just had an interception. It's pretty cool. And he had a sack, too. So that's 3 solo tackles. So, shows a little promise for him. But they're starting to look at the back end of their rebuild. Doug Peterson is here. And if anyone's going to help Trevor Lawrence out, it's going to be him. And I don't know, man. Trevor Lawrence has the talent. Give the Jaguars another year. Hopefully they make a big splash in free agency this year. That might be really good. I have the Seattle Seahawks moving up this week. From number 32 to number 29. I mean, they upset the team I had at number 3. I thought it would be only fair to give them credit for it. I still don't think that they're, that talented of a team. I don't have any hope in Geno Smith, but it would be pretty cool to see Geno Smith after all the years of, he was supposed to be the Jets franchise quarterback, and, if he came back and somehow surprised everybody with the Seahawks, that would be a beautiful story. He was 23 for 28 in this game, 195 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, sacked twice, and his passer rating was 119.5. He performed better than Russell Wilson in this game. Everyone was sleeping on him, and he showed up. Rashad Penny, their lead back, carried the ball only 12 times for 60 yards and averaged 5 yards per carry. I think they could have put the ball in his hands a little more. He's been around. He's been with this team for some time. Wow, Geno Smith really did a good job of getting the ball to everybody. The most targeted receiver in this game was DK Metcalf, with 7. He caught all 7. It was only for 36 yards, so I guess they were using him as a check down. Never heard of Colby Parkinson. or Will Dissly. There's their two leading receivers, both with 43 yards and a touchdown. They did fumble the ball a few times, but I mean, it was a big upset. They almost the Broncos were, maybe 10 yards. If they had an extra 10 yards on that final drive and they kicked that field goal, the Broncos probably win that game. It was really close, and the Seahawks came out of that by the skin of their teeth. But it was fun to see the Seahawks win, their revenge game against Russell Wilson. I don't know how much I expect this success to move forward, but, if it does, if they turn out to be a good team this year, then I give them credit. I talked a lot of bad about them in my first episode of this Power Rankings, and if they prove me wrong, I'll be more than happy to talk about it. I would be ecstatic. I have the Texans sitting at number 30. They surprised us all by tying the Colts. Where are they? They surprised us all by tying up the Colts. I've been talking about Davis Mills for a while. I like Davis Mills. He was 23 for 37, 240 yards, 2 touchdowns on the day, was sacked 3 times, 98.9 passer rating. You can't really ask for more out of your second-year quarterback that you took in the 3rd round of the draft. I'm really rooting for this guy. I really hope he proves himself this season, because he is not playing with a lot of help besides maybe Brandon Cooks and O.J. Howard. And he, I don't want to say he got it done against the Colts because they didn't win, but he surprised everybody. 98.9 passer rating is pretty good for a dude that is coming from where he's coming from. He's proving people wrong. Another guy who did a great job sharing the rock. He got the ball to 9 different receivers this week. I like this kid a lot. If I would like to see the Texans build around him. I really hope they don't. They're going to have a high draft pick this year, so I hope they don't try to replace him. The fact that they didn't beat the Colts, I don't expect them to win a lot of games this year. I would love them to. I would love to see Davis Mills prove himself, and right now he is. He keeps playing like this. Even if they decide to replace him, somebody else will bring in Davis Mills next season. He will have a shot on a different team where he'll have a little more breathing room, because, I don't know, nobody has job security in this Houston Texans building after the BS they pulled last season. But he's the real story of the game for them. Other than that, Rex Burkhead is still in the league, and he's running the football for the Houston Texans. Didn't know that. I don't really know the names of any of their O-linemen. Defense doesn't look terrible. Derek Stingley had a pretty good game. Oh my God, Kamu Grugier-Hill, 18 total tackles, 14 solo, a tackle for loss. That's actually pretty impressive. What does he play? He was a 6th round pick in 2018. He's a linebacker. Hey, that's impressive. That's an impressive game from him. And their defense did impress. They held up a Colts offense that I personally thought would be outstanding. And they did their job. I just feel bad for all of these players that are talented, that they're underneath the Texans regime, because I don't believe in ownership. I think the problem with the Texans is ownership. Moving forward, I have the Jets falling from number 29 to number 31. I don't know. I feel weird ordering this bottom 27 because they all did decently well. They played against a Ravens team And they held up on the defensive side of the ball. They did their job. I mean, they stopped Baltimore's rushing attack and forced Lamar Jackson to throw the ball. They picked off Lamar Jackson, but they did let him get away with 3 touchdown passes. Joe Flacco threw the ball 59 times, completed on 37 of them, for 302 yards, 1 touchdown and an interception. I don't know why they had him throw the ball that many times. They should have taken up a little more of the clock. Michael Carter is a more than capable running back in this league. He had only 10 carries on 60 yards, averaging 6 yards per carry. Maybe we'll see him get a little more attention, a little more carries next week. They don't really have anything crazy in the wide receiving department. It was just, I was actually slightly impressed that they were able to lose 24-9 against this Ravens team. I thought this was going to be a blowout, 40-0, 40-3. 24-9 is impressive for me. And it's really impressive that they did stop that running offense, or at least hold them to an average of 3 yards. And at number 32, I have the Chicago Bears. Now, I'm sorry, Bears fans. I know you just upset my number 8 team on this list. But to be fair, I just dropped that team down to number 25. I want to put both teams that played in that game at 31 and 32. That game looked like a high school football game. In defense of both teams, the conditions were horrible. There was the field was completely flooded, but I just wasn't happy with what I saw out of the product out of both teams that played on the field in that day, and I thought one of them deserved to be 32. If it had to be the team that won, it's okay, because the Bears roster does not look that good anyway. Now, if the Bears go ahead and who do they play next week? Let me check. I am sorry for holding up you and your valuable time. I can't even find them. 49. All right. Next week they play the Packers. Now, if they beat the Packers, I give them credit. They will not be sitting in 32, no matter how bad that game looks. If they beat the Packers, they actually have a decently easy schedule this year. If they can beat the Packers in the second game of this season, I promise you, Bears fans, they will not be sitting at 32 anymore. I don't really even know what to say about this game. I mean, the Bears came from behind. They were being shut out 10-0, and then what was it? In the third quarter, with like 4 minutes left, Justin Fields hit on a massive throw to Dante Pettis. It was how many yards touchdown? It was a 51-yard touchdown. It was Dante Pettis' only catch of the game. And after that, it was all Bears. The Bears scored another 12 points to win the game. Khalil Herbert wasn't horrible in this. It was pretty good in this game. For 9 carries, 45 yards, he averaged 5 yards, and he had a touchdown. Khalil Herbert should probably be the feature of this offense, while Justin Fields takes a little bit of a back seat. 8 of 17. I don't know why Justin Fields is running the ball 11 times. I get it. It's slippery out there. Those wide receivers are having a hard time making their cuts. David Montgomery, 17 carries, 26 yards, 1.5 yards per carry. They really need to forget about David Montgomery and start using Khalil Herbert as their feature back. Maybe use David Montgomery on a 3rd and 1, any type of short distance play. But Khalil Herbert should be the feature back and the feature guy, because I really think he's the most talented player on this offense. Alright, so with the Bears at 32, that's going to conclude my list for this week. I know this was a long one. We went pretty in-depth here. Thank you guys for coming around and watching me ramble about football. please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.